Hi everyone, so today's video is going to be about the initial conflict between the CCP and the KMT and what led from what seemed like genuine attempts at negotiation to leading to conflict and civil war breaking out. So the first point that I want to talk about, the real catalyst for the outbreak of direct conflict between the CCP and the KMT is the Soviet withdrawal from Manchuria. This is a point that is strongly argued by Westad in his book Decisive Encounters, where he argues that the key reason for the outbreak of conflict between the CCP and the KMT is most definitely the withdrawal of the Soviet Union from Manchuria. So we know that the Soviet Union was allowed to continue operating in Manchuria after the Second World War for much longer, but they did have pressure from the US to withdraw eventually. And their motivation for withdrawing was because the economic discussions that they were having with the KMT about a Sino-Soviet economic deal had stalled, and so Stalin's policy shifted, and what he wanted to do was he wanted to destroy any chance of a US-led peace settlement. And so he wanted to stimulate conflict between the KMT and the CCP so that the US could not influence the establishment of the new government in China. And they hoped that by leaving Manchuria, the CCP would remain in control. He hoped that that would lead, because of Manchuria's industrial powerhouse, he hoped that that would lead the KMT to making economic concessions in deals with the Soviet Union, and also that it would ensure no formal alliance between the United States and China, and also had a side benefit of placating the US calls to withdraw Soviet troops from Manchuria. However, this was not to be, or maybe part of it was to be. He did want to ensure that there was no peace settlement, and this is what happened. So by withdrawing from Manchuria, the Soviet Union left a highly disputed territory, Manchuria, open in a critical time in peace talks. And Manchuria was so important to both sides. For Chiang and the KMT, Manchuria was a vital piece in the program of national unification. And for Mao and the CCP, Manchuria was the only new territory they had gained from the war with Japan, and was significant to them for that reason. So how did this occur? Well, the Soviet withdrawal began in southern Manchuria on 13th of March 1946, and by the 31st of March, KMT forces had attacked Siping to try and break through to the Manchurian capital of Changchun to claim Manchuria for the KMT. However, Mao ordered Lin Biao, who was the commander of the CCP forces, to counterattack, and that all but extinguished any hope of negotiations between the two groups. And he also ordered Lin to occupy Harbin, which was the industrial centre of Manchuria, to make sure the industry did not fall into the hands of the KMT, and also Changchun, which is the area that KMT needed to break through to reach the capital. It wasn't all that dramatic. The KMT was rather conciliatory once they saw that the CCP was going to react with conflict. Most KMT officials chose to leave with the Soviet rather than face direct conflict. It seems like this move, both on the part of Chiang and of Mao, committed them to conflict, but Mao, for a part of the time, seemed like he wanted to keep one foot in the peace negotiation pool. So he ordered CCP units across China that if they were attacked by KMT, they were to complain to the US-led truce teams when attacked. So that communicated to the US that the CCP appeared to be interested in resolving the conflict peacefully. However, it's disputed whether this was genuine, and this is an ongoing theme when studying Mao. Was he extremely calculated? So much so that you cannot consider his motivations to be genuine. So it's argued that perhaps by appearing to be appealing to US peace negotiation, he was actually continued on gaining political traction rather than territory by concentrating on propaganda works rather than conflict. So this allowed for him to gain more widespread support. This bought him time, I suppose, to gain more widespread support for the CCP. And one of the ways that he did this at this time was to become more extreme in their view of land reform. So initially they had argued that land reform would come through reduced rent and interest rates for peasants, but at this point they argued for complete land redistribution from the landowners to the peasants. There are three motivations for this change in policy. Firstly, since the Second World War, the end of the Sino-Japanese War, peasants had become more courageous in their attempts to take over land since the landowners had been weakened by the Sino-Japanese War. They were more committed to more direct and courageous action in land takeover. In addition, it just was in line with communist ideals. It was expected at some point that the CCP would move to more radical land reform in line with communist ideals. And then lastly, it would provide a tactical advantage over the KMT that would gain, it would provide a tactical advantage over the KMT in two ways. Firstly, appealing to the peasants and saying you're going to completely redistribute the land is obviously appealing to peasants and would bring them over to the side of the CCP against the KMT, who were providing support for landowners. But also, should the peasants be successful in seizing the land from the landowners, they are more likely to, those areas that have been seized by peasants are more likely to be loyal to the CCP over the KMT, and therefore it's like having little tiny armies of peasants gaining territory for him under the guise of land redistribution. So thanks so much for listening to this today. I hope that you can see that the initial part of the Civil War was due to Soviet withdrawal and was probably a calculated move by Stalin. And although he didn't get the complete results that he wanted, it did result in direct conflict between between the KMT and the CCP. Next video, we are going to be looking at some of the early defeats of the CCP by the KMT, and also look at the factors that indicate why the KMT should have defeated the CCP. Thanks very much. Bye.